When a government spokesperson starts smiling through a conversation about dead children, you know something's off. This is May Golan, Israel's Minister for Social Equality. In this interview with Piers Morgan, she tries to explain away Gaza's suffering with denial, deflection, and distraction. But we're not letting it slide. In this video, we'll break the interview into 3 key moments and fact-check what was said, because the truth matters. Let's get into it.
But for them to say that we are doing it in order to hurt specifically innocent civilians is an absolute lie. I can tell you, and
but I hear this, with respect, Minister, I hear this from a lot of Israeli government members, ambassadors, lawyers, and so on. And my point is always the same, is that even if we accept that nobody in the IDF has ever deliberately targeted a child, which is contradicted by a lot of witnesses, but even if you accept that premise, you have to also agree that 20,000 children, maybe many more, that's just the ones that we believe is the number, have been killed as you've gone after Hamas. And it's a staggering number of children, innocent kids who've been killed here. And just on a human level, well, surely you must accept that this has now gone on long enough.
First of all, on a human level, I can tell you, not 100%, 1,000,000%, that we take no pleasure whatsoever not in seeing anyone innocent in Gaza who died, let alone our holy and hero soldiers and our innocent people. But let's put some things in perspective, and I would like to answer that, you know, as much as I can, that would satisfy you, because hearing the interview before, it seems like you're coming from one side, and I can understand the amount of videos you see.
I'm not on anyone's side.
Okay,
as you probably know, at the start of all this, for many months, I was the one being attacked by the pro-Palestinian guests who came on because they didn't like the fact that I was supporting Israel's right to defend itself, and in fact said it had a moral duty to defend itself. So just because I'm now criticising the Israeli government, let's not pretend that somehow I'm changing sides. I was never on anybody's side.
No.
I try and be an objective journalist.
When I heard that recorded just now, that interview, you said to him specifically, no one needs to persuade me about Gaza. So,
right.
This is the script every Israeli official follows. We don't want children to die. It's not our fault. Blame Hamas. But here's the reality. Over 37,000 Palestinians are dead. Nearly 15,000 of them are children. You don't get numbers like that from targeting terrorists. Golan brings up hostages, the Holocaust, Israeli trauma, all very real. But none of it justifies bombing homes, markets, hospitals. Saying we didn't mean to doesn't make the dead less dead. And invoking Israel's own trauma doesn't change what's happening right now in Gaza. This isn't about intent, it's about outcome.
I think that when you see, okay, Mr. Morgan, let me answer. When you see videos and when you see pictures, which I'm sure you get a mass of them, okay, you have to remember those videos and pictures don't come from the moon. Right? They're coming from people who take videos there. Everyone has mobile phones, smartphones. So obviously, some of those videos could be reflected to one side. I really do suggest, you see some of the videos of the horrors that happened on October 7th.
I saw them.
Of the horrors that have been happening. One second.
Well, I saw them.
You saw the 40-minute video? You saw the 40-minute video of the horrors? Well, if you saw that, if you did saw that, and let me just tell you that it's just a part. It's just a part of what we could have shown, because the majority was horrible. If you saw that, you can't stay calm in yourself and relaxed about what Israel and the Jewish nation have to endure for the last 75 years. We have women that are being slaughtered and raped in the most brutal way. I'm, as the Minister for Social Equality and the Advancement of Women, I just heard the person that you interviewed mocking about it and laughing about it.
What he was laughing about.
No, hang on. He was laughing and mocking. You asked him.
You must have
mischaracterized.
You must have mischaracterized it.
Okay.
The point he was making, and he's an extremely courageous doctor who risked his own life several times now to go and work in hospitals in Gaza as the bombs are dropping. So I won't have you attacking him.
Yeah, I wish he would have told you that Israel has suggested more than 100 incubators to the Shifa hospitals and to the authorities of Hamas, and they refused it. I wish he would have told you that many hospitals, Mr. Morgan, 1 second. I wish he would have told you that many hospitals underground have facilities of terror. I wish he would have told you that schools schools and places of humanitarian aid, which, by the way, the country that have massacred in her holiday, has been given over 70,000 aid trucks. Do you hear that?
Yeah,
70,000 aid trucks. He's talking about a hospital.
Let me respond.
What country does that? A country that has a woman being chopped off into pieces and babies being chopped off into pieces, men beheaded, elderly people are being kidnapped. Do you know what we had to watch?
Yes,
At this point in the interview, May Golan tries a classic diversion. Don't trust those videos, they come from people, she says, pivoting straight into proclaiming that Gaza has been given over 70,000 aid trucks and that Hamas is refusing them. Let's unpack that. First, the official figures from the United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, OCHA. They're not talking tens of thousands. Instead, they've repeatedly cited only hundreds of aid trucks entering Gaza each month, and many have never even reached their destination due to bombing zones, security checks, or looting. For context, pre-war, Gaza averaged 500 to 600 aid truck entries per day. That's up to 18,000 a month. But during the current blockade, those numbers dropped by over 80%. At most, hundreds, not tens of thousands, trucks enter monthly. The Morning Star, a generally pro-Israeli aid group, even questions Netanyahu's official claim of 92,000 trucks since October, noting that, if true, such a total still averages out to only 200 per day, far below pre-war levels. And the UN, in the past 12 days alone, it reported only around 200 truckloads entered Gaza, despite ongoing needs, while hospitals reported 29 children had already died of starvation in just 2 days. So where does the 70,000 number come from? It appears to mix cumulative counts, planned shipments, or include private commercial shipments, not actual aid destined for Gaza's hungry and dying. Bottom line, the claim that Gaza has been flooded with humanitarian aid is deeply misleading. It punches holes in Golan's narrative that images are fake, but aid is real, and any suffering is the result of Hamas. The truth, aid is arriving, but not nearly enough. Less than 20% of pre-war levels and often stuck at the border or looted. This isn't just a statistical omission. Kids are starving, medical supplies are dwindling, and hundreds have died waiting in barren convoys. So it's not about distrust in footage, it's about disbelief in numbers. And that's where the real propaganda lies.
As I said to you,
yes.
For a long time in this war, I defended Israel's right to defend itself. But that right to self-defense has now been consumed by senior members of your government, your colleagues, Smotrich, Ben-Gvir and others, extreme right-wing members of that government, who are now talking in a very brazen and very open way about what they really want to happen, which is, in their words, cleansing Gaza of all Palestinians. That is ethnic cleansing. That is a war crime. So you may not say that, or maybe you will, but your colleagues are saying that, and they want to cleanse Gaza, as they put it, of all Palestinians. That is not self-defense. That is ethnic cleansing.
Now, regarding Smotrich and Ben-Gvir, you have to remember, when you're saying Smotrich and Ben-Gvir, you're talking about, and I don't know what they said, but I'm referring to what you said. I'm, trusting your words. You're talking obviously about the Trump's plan. Now, this is not Smotrich or Ben-Gvir's plan.
No, I'm not talking about Trump's plan.
Okay, so I don't know. I don't know
about
anything
what came out of their mouths.
They want to kill.
They want to cleanse.
Gaza?
Their words, cleanse Gaza of all the Palestinians.
So when you say cleanse, I can tell you that they refer to the Trump's plan. And when we're talking about Trump's plan, I have to tell you that, first of all, Donald J. Trump, which is what I consider the best thing that God could have given us for a new Middle Age, his collaboration with Prime Minister Netanyahu is really what we could all wish for in order to make a new Middle East. But I can tell you that we are not taking anything off the table in order to just protect our civilians and our children of Israel. And if we have to look at Trump's plan, which for me, as I think, is thinking outside of the box, and if we have to consider other things, like we have examined over the decades, We will, but I don't see it as ethnic cleansing, let alone.
So would you like? Let me ask you then. Let me ask you. Would you like to cleanse Gaza of all the Palestinians?
Listen, I don't use the terminology of you and your colleagues. That is not my terminology.
Well, that's the terminology of your colleague.
Is not my terminology. Just like the settlements that you mentioned with
it's the terminology. To be clear, it's the terminology of your own cabinet colleague. It's Smodrich, your finance minister. It's your colleague, not mine or my colleagues. It's the language used by your finance minister only 2 weeks ago.
I can tell you that for the first time ever, we have a very right-wing government, as you can see. Our views are very transparent, and everything that is held in the cabinet and not in the cabinet but in the government is being shared outside. No one is hiding anything. Now, Smotrich and Ben Gvir are not a part of my party, but they are a part of this government. And I'm telling you, although I'm not representing them, that they are talking about the Trump's plan, and we are considering it just like we consider any other plan in order to protect our civilians. Now, I want to say another thing about that. Listen, I don't know. I heard your interviews, and I know you talk about Smotrich and his things that he said, but I want to say something about Bezalel Smotrich, although I have nothing to do with his party. Yes, he's a part of my government, not from my party. I don't know that, but Smotrich went to more funerals this year than you went in your entire life, okay? His entire family.
How do you know that?
Wait 1 second. Wait 1 second.
You've no idea how many funerals I've been to.
And
how do you know that?
his entire friends, because I tell you, he went to hundreds and hundreds of funerals from his own community. His heart was broken. We are wounded. Our ministers are wounded from the sights we saw. I wanted to tell you before, and you stopped me. As the Minister for Social Equality and the Advancement of Women, what I saw that women have endured, your eyes and your mind could never comprehend. The fact is that we have children in Gaza today that the interview before was talking about that are being raised on Mein Kampf. They are being raised of killing Jews from the second they are born. This is what they say. And you know what? If you don't believe me, you can talk with the hostages that came back from captivity. And
what would you do with them? What would you do with them?
Well, first of all, this is not an issue now with the Palestinians. This is not an issue with the terror regime of Hamas. In my idea,
I'm asking you what you would do with the Palestinian population. What would you do with it?
I don't know. Would you like to accept them or we eliminate the terror of Hamas? Would England accept them?
Well,
At this point, the conversation isn't about military strategy. It's about ideology. And May Golan doesn't flinch. Piers asks a direct question. Your colleague used the term cleanse Gaza of Palestinians. Do you agree with that? And what does she do? She pivots. First, she says they were referring to Trump's peace plan, but that's not true. Trump's deal of the century never included mass expulsion. It talked about security zones and land swaps, not ethnic cleansing. But let's pause for a moment, because this is important. In January 2024, Smotrich was caught on record saying that Gaza should be emptied of Arabs. Ben Gvir has repeatedly stated that Palestinians who don't leave willingly should be removed by force. These are not fringe voices. They are ministers in the government, in charge of finance and internal security. And Golan, she doesn't reject what they said. She doesn't even criticize it. Instead, she says this. They've been to more funerals than you've been to in your life. That's her defense. Not ethics, not international law, but pain. Pain doesn't justify erasure. Golan then pulls the camera even farther away. She accuses Gaza's children of being raised on Mein Kampf. This is the moment when the human cost is no longer even acknowledged. Not once in this clip does she mention Palestinians as people. They are either terrorists or potential terrorists or future terrorists. And when Piers asks her, what would you do with the Palestinians? Her answer is chilling. I don't know. That's not the issue. That silence, that's the plan. Because when a government doesn't have an answer for what to do with millions of people under its control, and its ministers are openly talking about removal, that's not ambiguity. That's policy in disguise. Golan says she doesn't use that terminology, but refusal to name something doesn't mean it's not happening. Language is being used here as cover to soften and mask an agenda that would be called genocide if any other country attempted it. This isn't a fringe view. This is the mainstream of Israeli leadership right now, and this is what the international community needs to confront. A government that speaks the language of extermination and a minister who refuses to reject it.
Well, let me read you. Let me remind you of some of the things that you've said yourself. All right, during an October 24 rally in support of Jewish settlements in Gaza, you said there should be another Nakba, referring to the 1948 Palestinian displacement of hundreds of thousands of people. You also said, I am personally proud of the ruins of Gaza, and that every baby, even 80 years from now, will tell their grandchildren what the Jews did. That was in February, you said this. You want explicit violence against Hamas and Palestinians. In February 2024...
Against Hamas, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
We want to eliminate every terrorist of Hamas. Let me tell you that.
Hang on, I haven't finished yet. I haven't finished. Sorry, I haven't finished.
When we say, Mr.
I haven't
Morgan,
finished yet.
Oh,
in December 2023,
please.
you said, I don't care about Gaza. I literally don't care at all. I mean, and I could go on reading you stuff you've had. So my point is, you say that Smodrich and Ben-Gvir, they're the right-wingers. You're sounding pretty right-wing yourself.
I'm a right-winger as well. I'm a right-winger as well.
Right.
Absolutely.
Would you say you're an extremist?
That doesn't mean I take any pleasure of an innocent Arab man or woman or child in Gaza suffering. But the fact is that you all, for some reason, refuse to acknowledge is that Hamas is using them as human shields all the time.
I've never denied that.
You tell me. I want to ask you, Mr. Morgan, you think...
I know what Hamas do.
I wanted to ask you something. You care very much about the Gazans, right? I want to ask you something. You know,
I care about Israelis too.
The horrifying Holocaust. Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. When we had the horrifying Holocaust, do you know that we had such a thing called the righteous among the nations? Those were Christian people who risked their own lives in order to save Jews. Now, I'm asking you, Mr. Morgan, I'm still waiting for one Gazan person, one out of 2 million, to come out and say, this is where the hostages are. This is where they hide. Or one of them to come and say, this is where the terrorism are. This is where they hide all of their weapons and their rockets and all of the horrible tunnels where they abuse our hostages. Not even one. Now, even though I said that, I can tell you that right now, the IDF, which I tell you, you cannot agree, that's okay, but I tell you, IDF is the most moral army in the world. I repeat, is the most moral army in the world.
Okay, well, that brings
me...
He's
not shooting.
Okay.
One second, one more sentence, Mr. Morgan, please.
Okay.
Is not shooting at population, is not shooting an innocent population. But you tell me, what do we need to do when Hamas terrorists are hiding behind human people, are hiding behind schools,
you know the first thing you could do?
Underground of hospitals? What do we need to do?
You know
This might be the most disturbing part of the interview, not because of what Golan says, but because of what she refuses to. Piers doesn't ambush her, he reads her own words. There should be another Nakba. I'm proud of the ruins of Gaza. I don't care about Gaza. These aren't rumors, these are public statements, on camera, at rallies, in print. But instead of owning them or correcting them, she dodges, she interrupts, she changes the subject. She talks over Piers, pivots to Hamas, mentions the Holocaust, and says she's still waiting for one Gazan to turn in hostages. Not once does she say, yes, I said that, or no, I didn't mean that. And that silence speaks volumes, because this isn't about a poor choice of words, it's about ideology and cowardice. Golan believes in the policies of destruction, but she doesn't want to be held responsible for the words that reveal them, and her pivot, accusing millions of Gazans of complicity, is chilling. She says, I'm still waiting for one Gazan to say where the hostages are. And because that hasn't happened, she implies they're all guilty. Then she ends with the line Israeli officials always repeat, the IDF is the most moral army in the world. But if you're proud of the ruins, if you want a second Nakba, if you don't care about an entire civilian population, then morality is just a word you use to feel better about the violence you support.
You know the first thing you could do? You could lift the ban that the Israeli government has put on international journalists going into Gaza, so that all the claims that you make, which always blame Hamas for absolutely everything, could be verified by independent journalists. Why don't you do that? Why for 20 months have you banned international media from going into Gaza? An unprecedented ban for any modern warfare. Why have you done this?
Well, I want to tell you that, first of all, you have to understand something. The IDF army is not trained to shoot in bursts. They are trained to shoot through sights in a single shot mode. That means they are not shooting like in the movies, like you think, spraying all over.
What's that got to do with the media being banned?
I will tell you right now. So if you'll just let me finish. So you would agree with me that if the IDF would have shot in bursts, Gaza would have been a parking lot within 12 hours, and that would have been much more dangerous to the. No, it's not.
You've destroyed 70% of Gaza already, and you're carrying on destroying the rest.
For the Gazans
Gaza is a parking lot. With all due respect, Minister, you have reduced two-thirds of Gaza to a parking lot. Why are you pretending otherwise?
Mr. Morgan, no, I'm not pretending. I don't need to pretend.
Funny?
I'm saying the reality like it is. No,
you think that's funny?
Of course, it's funny. It's funny when you think that I'm pretending. I'm sitting here in front of you. I don't have to, right? I can live my life and don't conduct with you. But I am sitting here because I know I'm telling the truth. I have no reason to lie. Now, regarding to the journalists, the IDF has declared the Gaza Strip as a very dangerous combat zone. And there is a risk, not just for the journalists to be harmed by the terrorists or by the IDF trying to eliminate the terrorists that are hiding behind civilians, but also there's a risk for journalists to be kidnapped. But I have to ask, Mr. Morgan, you are so worried about journalists that will eventually go into Gaza. Don't worry about that. But what about worrying a little bit that maybe the Red Cross would go in to visit our hostages that are drinking sewage water, that are sitting in cages of 1 meter, that are being abused,
to be clear,
raped,
again,
beaten up, that haven't been eaten, that no one knows what is going on with them. Not like the Red Cross that is coming into our prisons and visiting murderers, Arab murderers. They are visiting them.
If I may respond.
Piers asks a simple question. Why has the Israeli government banned international journalists from Gaza for nearly 2 years? May Golan doesn't answer. Instead, she talks about how IDF soldiers are trained to shoot single bullets. It's a strange, irrelevant detour. Then she says Gaza is too dangerous. But journalists have reported from Aleppo, Fallujah, Kiev, all war zones. What they need is access. Israel hasn't given it. And during this blackout, more than 120 Palestinian journalists have been killed. Foreign media is blocked. Gaza has become the most censored war zone in the modern era. Golan eventually says they'll go in eventually, but by then it'll be too late. She then tries to deflect. She says the Red Cross is busy visiting Arab murderers in Israeli prisons while ignoring Israeli hostages in Gaza. But here's the truth. As of 2024, over 6,000 Palestinians are imprisoned by Israel, including hundreds of children. Many are held under administrative detention. No charge, no trial, sometimes for months or years. That's not justice. That's occupation by incarceration. So when Piers asks about transparency and Golan changes the subject, again, it's clear what's happening. This isn't about protecting journalists. It's about controlling the story. If there's nothing to hide, let the world see.
But you talk about the IDF being the most moral army in the world. On Friday, the Israeli publication Haaretz published a story claiming the IDF are deliberately firing at Palestinians at aid distribution centres. Soldiers from the IDF told the publication that commanders ordered troops to shoot at crowds to drive them away or disperse them, even though it was clear they posed no threat. More than 400, maybe 500 people have been killed, apparently, in this manner. Benjamin Netanyahu, of course, immediately said all of this was malicious falsehood designed to defame the military. And the Israeli military has launched an investigation into possible war crimes following the report. But you see, this is the problem, and this is why the fact there's no media there is so important. It's not down to the IDF to decide whether journalists are at risk. It's down to the journalists and their organisations. And if the journalists were there, they could verify exactly who is shooting who in the food lines. Because you just say, as you always do, everything is being done, every bad act in Gaza is being done by Hamas. And everybody else says, no, actually, the IDF are doing a lot of bad things too. But the only way to really get to the bottom of this is let the journalists
Who's everybody else?
Pretty much everybody else. Pretty much everybody.
Everybody else.
The only journalists allowed to operate, of whom you've killed nearly 200, the Palestinian journalists, they, of course, are the only journalists that can actually get any reports out, because they're the only ones allowed in, because they're already there. You have the United Nations. You have allies like the UK, like France. You've got America now, who wants to bring this to an end. Pretty much everybody.
The truth is being buried in rubble and silence. And until the cameras are allowed in, it's on us to keep looking, keep questioning, and keep telling the story they don't want told. This is just the beginning. Subscribe to Project Unmasked and help us expose what others try to hide.